money is completely worthless. And if that pisses you off, this video is probably not for you. If you're intrigued, then you should probably stick around. Because today we're going to be redefining money. I'm going to help you understand the systems that the wealthy have been using for years to keep people poor. And this video is basically for people that are conscious, people that have done a little bit of the work. Like if you haven't ever heard of the book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, I wouldn't start with this video, right? I also didn't make this video for people who legitimately have concerns about their safety, well-being, putting a roof over their heads, and that kind of a thing. So if you're at like level 3, maybe level 2, but probably level 3 and above on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this video is going to be incredibly valuable for you. If you are below that, I don't want to waste your time. And there are a lot of other things and other videos out there in the world that'll teach you how to make money in a way that's probably more accessible to you. But for people that are ready to step beyond the like, how do I make money? How do I make money online? What's a side hustle? Like all of that. If you're actually like, no, I understand money, but the system of money keeps pissing me off. Or maybe you're irritated or agitated by some of the things that are going on in the news today about the different things that are happening with the economy and what's happening with tariffs and all of that. We're not going to get into the political side of stuff. But if that's you and you're starting to say, wait a second, I think I might need to play the game differently. Maybe you're like me and you're thinking the conventional 401k method is probably not the best way to build wealth in the long term. Or you're thinking, man, I love my work so much I'd never retire. So what's my retirement plan? If any of this sounds familiar, you're in the right spot. So first, before we dive into everything, I want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. This video and the concepts I'm going to share is going to fly in the face of a lot of conventional wisdom. It's going to really call into question some of the systems of financial literacy that are widely purported out in the world. I'm not going to say any names, but people that really focus on having a lot of cash on hand, people that focus on long-term savings or investment in the stock market or things like that. I'm not speaking to those. And if those are your things, that's totally fine. The reason that this is going to fly in the face of that is because I'm going to expose some things, basically. So out there in the world, right, everyone has a way that they want you to purchase what they're selling you. And in order for you to buy from someone, you actually first have to buy what they're saying. And so if somebody wants you to buy what they're saying, they're going to have to make it very compelling. So first thing I'm going to do is tell you why you should listen to me. So basically, I have studied money extensively. I've helped lots of people make lots of money in my time. I've worked with big companies, small companies, you name it. I basically went from making $35,000 a year to making $40,000 in a single day. And I did all of that because I began to understand the systems of money. Now, I have absolutely nothing to sell you. I do not have a program. I don't have a coaching thing. Nothing like that to sell you. I'm simply making this accessible because I truly believe that if I had had this knowledge, I would have been able to build the life of my dreams of complete freedom a lot sooner. And I just kind of want you to have it. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, you're definitely in the right place. So let's start with why talk about money, right? Money is such a common topic, and yet a lot of times it comes with a lot of stress. In fact, CNN reported on their survey that 71% of Americans identify money as a significant cause of stress in their lives. 76% of households are living paycheck to paycheck, and the credit card debt is higher than it's ever been and continuing to grow. Money has been a topic of conversation in the political space. It's also been a topic of conversation in religious spaces, spiritual spaces. Everything. It's just like everyone's there and everyone has their idea about it. But I don't find a ton of people talking about the fundamental of like, what is money? So I love to ask this question when I'm speaking in groups or doing different things, like, what is money? And a lot of times you'll hear words like, oh, money is freedom. Money is, opportunity. Money is the thing you use to get what you want, right? A lot of times people will even say money is value, right? Just at a very basic level. And I'd like to kind of edit that a little bit. I don't disagree, but I also don't fully agree with that statement. So let's first reframe money. So money is nothing, right? Money is worthless. Money is actually just a placeholder for value. So money as a placeholder for value. And what do I mean by this? Well, if you had $100, let's say you had a $100 bill and you were on a desert island with no one to exchange with, that money would be about as valuable as a piece of toilet paper, maybe even more so, right? So money only has value when you and your money are in a place where there is an opportunity for exchange. The most common place is the open market, and we use that open market to exchange goods and services, and a lot of times money is the in-between. So basically, the entire system of money has been set up, and now our way of acquiring it has kind of turned into a big scam. And I want to show you what I did with like a drawing that I did on my iPad. So let me pull this up. Okay, so long, long ago in the land of Colorado, when I moved there, I had a bunch of snow, and all I had in my garage to shovel said snow was a rake. And I don't know if you've ever tried to shovel snow with a rake, but it was not great. Now, the good news was I had a neighbor, and my neighbor had already shoveled his snow, and he had some dog poop in his grass. That's dog poop, not leaves. And he was thinking, golly, what would be really helpful to pick up all this dog poop would be a rake, and all I've got's a shovel, right? So in this moment, when I've got a bunch of snow in my yard and my neighbor has a bunch of dog poop in his yard, we were thinking, what makes sense? Let's, exchange it. What if I give you my shovel, you give me the rake, and everything works out, right? So this is the basic rate of exchange that has existed for a long time. Now, a couple things are necessary in order for this system to work. We need to have the same relative value, right? You're not going to exchange a rake for a house, for instance. You're going to exchange it for same relative value. You also need to be close in proximity, and problems need to be occurring simultaneously. So he needs a lot of poop in his yard at the same time that I've got a lot of snow in my yard for the exchange to be equitable. So at the end of the day, a couple of things can go wrong with this. What do we do next season? Do we trade back? Like, do we get to keep these things? And then you got economics, right? If there's a lot of people, like sometimes it snows in Colorado where it all just dumps all at once, and then we don't have enough shovels to go around, what happens there? So instead of exchanging rakes for shovels, we basically designed this system where you can take a rake and you can exchange it for money, or you can take money and exchange it for a rake, and so on with shovels. So at the end of the day, the person basically just needs to have money so that they can do this exchange. Well, for all of us to have access to all the rakes and shovels in the world became tedious. So what happened? Somebody decided, you know what, I'm going to collect all the rakes and all the shovels, and I'm going to start a store. And inside this store, I will basically take from people their money, and then I will be able to give them the shovels and rakes. So I will keep track of all of that so that you don't have to worry about it. You give me the money, you get the shovels and rakes, and everything's good. And everything's good except for one big problem. Where does the person get the money that they need to give to the store? So simultaneously, while the person's trying to figure out where to get the money to give to the store is sitting there thinking, man, I've got all these shovels and rakes, but my time is kind of flying away and I miss being home with my family. That's his little family, by the way. And he's thinking, golly, I've got all this money in the store, but what do I want? I want to be home with my family. So at the same time, this person's thinking, gosh, I want to be home with my family and time's slipping away from me. This person's thinking, where am I going to get my money? Boom, presto, we have everyone exchanging. So now the little person works at the store selling rakes and shovels so that they can have money, and the other person is home with their family and happy. So everything's good, right? Everything's good, right? Maybe. Maybe not, right? Because now this person has to stay at this store to acquire the money so that they can go and buy the rakes and shovels. Now, of course, at the end of the day, people don't just want rakes and shovels. A lot of times the discontent and the unhappiness from our culture is from the person sitting there being like, okay, I have my money. Now what can I get? I want cars. I want vacations. I want houses. I want like education. I want all these other things. And I only have $1. So how am I going to get all these things? And they keep trading time for money and never really have enough. Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, unless you have a need for a rake or a shovel or a big car or whatever else, you could have just been happy. So the point of this video is basically, how do we get back to the rake and how do we understand what money really is so that we understand how to use it appropriately as a tool and don't become a slave to it? Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? How to be happier and not to be a slave to money. And this is the easy part, to be honest with you. If you just every single time during the day when you thought, man, I wish I had this car, I wish I had the opportunity to do this, I wish I could go here, I wish. Anytime you find yourself wanting something you do not have, immediately pause and be grateful for 5 things you do have. This is one of the best practices I ever got into that ultimately led me to be able to building a life that I genuinely don't need to leave. Nothing about my life needs to change, and I enjoy living it every single day because I like my rakes. I like everything I have, and if I want to get something else, the only thing I need to do is figure out how to give something of value. So if you want more money in the world, you simply have to give something of value and more money will become available to you if that's what you so desire. You can also exchange on other things. There are many people that do energetic exchanges and trades and things like that. There are a lot of cultures where money is still not a thing. And so at the end of the day, money being a placeholder for value has somewhat overcomplicated things. Now, in an effort to provide a lot of value in this video, I'm also going to overcomplicate things. So I heard the other day someone said a phrase and it completely flipped the way I was thinking about money as an object, right? The phrase was money is debt. So if you think about this, if you provide value to someone and they give you money for that thing that you provided value on, that money can do nothing for you until you go and exchange it with someone else, which means basically the rest of the world is in essence indebted to you. So if you have the money, you can command the most influence in the public market, right? If I walked up to you and I asked you, hey, would you mind walking my dog? You might say no. If I said, hey, would you walk my dog for $20? You might say, I don't know, $20, maybe, I've got some time, sure. If I walked up to you and I said, hey, would you walk my dog for $1,000? I can guarantee you even someone who doesn't even love dogs would probably do it for $1,000. So in a public market space where money is king, being able to have all the money not only means you have the money, but you have power over others, because basically the entire world is indebted to you in relation to how much money you have. So money is the ability to basically call in a debt of value on anyone around you. The more money you have, the more you can call in, the more value you can exchange, and therefore the more power and influence you have. And this is basically why people still want money. Once we've realized it doesn't have any real value, we still want it because it gives us the ability to trade things of value. So the more money you have, the more options you have. And this can definitely get you stuck in a spiral because you think you need more things, which takes you out of the ability to really sit in that gratitude practice and be grateful for what you have. So if you think about wanting money as simply wanting power, it simplifies the entire process entirely. And I don't know that it's a bad thing to want power, but I do think that if you simply want money and you don't acknowledge your desire for power or why that desire exists within you, you're missing a large portion of the story for yourself. And you may find that at the end of the day, even when you do acquire that money, that it's not what you thought it would be. And you ultimately don't feel as satisfied or as happy. Because if you want power, there's probably a reason deeper down within that, right? If we think about the way our brains are structured, they haven't super evolved in the last 10,000 years since we were existing in a very basic system. So if you think about existing in a basic tribal system, back before there was technology, back before communication and worldwide travel and trying to go to Mars and all the rest of this, it was a simple system of exchange, and it was being a part of a tribe that kept you from the danger of the elements, right? It was very survival based. And so if you had value in the tribe, you were less likely to be kicked out of it. And so you exchanged that value. You were a part of something, which meant when the elements and the monsters and the saber-toothed tigers came around, you were going to be defended because there were power in numbers. So if that was the last big time that our brains evolved, then we're still operating on the basis of how can I be of value and have enough power and influence over the people around me so that I am never at risk of being kicked out of the tribe. So typically when I see people really striving for more money or really striving for more power, it's because they have a fear of not being enough. And that fear of not being enough typically drives them to do some crazy and wild things. And you can short circuit all of that simply by doing a little bit more gratitude in your practice and also by working on your inner self and your inner being, right? The real gold mine, the real source of wealth in today's world is actually about how you can realistically assess, perfect, develop, and position your value in the marketplace today, knowing that at the end of the day, you have value regardless of how much money you have, regardless of how many different things you've accomplished. You as a person have value. And I would love for you to just know that in the depth of your soul that you absolutely have value, right? You do not need to do anything or be anyone to have value. You as a person have value. However, if you have not figured out how to position that value, you may constantly find yourself behind the curve. You might constantly find yourself at the bottom of the totem pole or not having enough power or influence to do what you want in the world, to be able to get yourself places in the world. So how do we fix that? Well, these are the 3 things that I would advocate for you to do immediately in order to accelerate your position in your space and give you the option of having as much money as you want. Sounds pretty great, right? So the first thing I would recommend you do is invest in yourself heavily. Oh, I get a little thumbs up thing. Invest in yourself heavily. You are the best investment you can make. Now, I'm not saying don't invest in the stock market or in real estate or in anything else that can help you to build long-term assets that you can call in on, long-term things of value for you that will work in the free market. But I'm really saying that if you have to prioritize something, invest in yourself. And this doesn't mean you need to buy a bunch of courses or hire a coach or do anything super hectic. Honestly, buying a nonfiction book can be a huge source of investment in yourself. Investing in yourself by taking time to take care of your body, by eating well, by being with yourself, having a gratitude practice, lowering your cortisol levels, all of that is a way that you will ultimately build wealth by investing in yourself, because that will make you of more value. The more you know, the healthier you are, the more capable you are at different things, the more valuable you are, which means your opportunity to make money or build wealth in the world becomes much greater, right? The second thing that I would recommend is to give first, right? If I put value into the marketplace, I am now owed money because nature hates a vacuum. So if I give you something of value, it is your inclination to give me something back, right? And if you have nothing that would be of value to me, then typically people will give you money. So if you want to make more money in the world, figure out what your value is and then find a way to put it into the world. And this is a two-part, right? Knowing what you have that is of value to the people around you, to the world around you, to the environments you're in, to the networks you're in, but also being able to position it. So the third thing I would recommend if you really want to increase your capacity for building wealth in a monetary or non-monetary sense is to learn marketing and sales skills. And I know this is coming out of left field and you were thinking, man, this was such good mindset stuff until now. Marketing and sales is how you position and exchange your value. Those are the basics of those two components, right? How you position and exchange your value. Wow, we have balloons too. It's going to be so much fun. I'm not even going to edit any of this. I just want to ship it because I think this information needs to get out there. So learn marketing and sales. This basically communicates, why should anyone care? Why should anyone listen? And if you've listened this far in the video, I can tell you that you're already well on your way to knowing what you need to know to be able to step into the marketplace, to be able to communicate your value, to be able to provide value to people, to be able to find peace where you're at and build any life you want.